So I'm getting the nod to start.
You
All
are.
right, everybody.
We are, in fact, live.
Good. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. We live stream, that is. We're so excited to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well, but there's a lot going on in the world right now. We
Indeed.
had some big shocks,
Well, that's
especially with OPEC. And
yeah. That's why we're gonna be doing live streams
yes,
in 3 days in a row.
yeah,
Yeah. Be on the lookout for another live stream tomorrow and another one the
on
day
Friday.
after. Yeah. So because, like Elizabeth said, those topics need some really in-depth analysis and all,
They
and that's the
do.
reason why we wanted to do it. Yeah, we could do it on a video, but it's gonna take a while. Whatever.
Well,
So
and we want that interaction with you guys. Oh, thank you,
yeah.
Raphael. Thank you so much for the super chat. You see it?
Oh, Raphael, I can't
Thank
see it from here,
you.
but thank you so much, Raphael. So, well, we truly, and we mean this when we say it, we truly appreciate you guys because without you, we would be no channel.
Absolutely.
So,
That's absolutely right.
so
We do it for you guys, and we really appreciate the community that we have here. You know, David talks about this all the time, that you guys actually give us information too, that, you know, because you're boots on the ground
Yeah.
wherever you are.
yeah, and I'm
And
learning from it.
yeah,
I'm learning from
me
this.
too.
So we truly appreciate you. So, speaking of that, before I forget,
Okay.
where are we on the Q&A for members?
So Q&A for members. So guys, if you want to join our membership, because we can only get to a couple of Q&As here, if you want to join our membership, there's a join button. And I think that we're going to start doing live Q&As there when we reach 100 members.
Just 100. That's it. How about maybe 500? How about 1,000?
Well, let's start with 100.
Okay, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. So I always think big.
I
think the
know
big
David's
picture,
a big
so
picture thinker. So
yeah.
back to the big picture, though.
Yeah,
This is a big
yeah.
deal.
Indeed. So what we're gonna be talking about today is why Japan ignored the United States, or the West, that is, the price cap regarding the Russian oil. This is not about just an oil transaction. You have to consider
No.
the geopolitical implications,
Mhm.
the economic, and the shift that is going on as we speak on the global stage. So that's what we're
Yeah.
going to be talking about today. So, well, just to launch it, as far as how all this happened, is that you all know about the EU, in coordination with the US, putting a
Yeah.
price cap on the Russian oil, that it will be at about $60 a barrel.
Right.
No more. Japan said, no, we're gonna go above that and pay about $70.
Uh-huh.
So the question that, if I am to put my geopolitical analyst hat on, the question that is gonna ought to be asked is, why Japan is breaking rank with the West?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, David, with that really being the question. So I'd like to share this quote that I found that I think is so interesting.
Sure.
It's from James Brown, who's a professor at Temple University's Japan campus. Professor Brown, who studies Russia and Japanese relations, said, quote, "It's not as if Japan can't manage without this. They can. They simply don't want to." That's really interesting, right? Because, you know, the argument might be that, oh, well, you know, Japan can't survive without this oil from Russia. And so that's why this was allowed to happen, is because, oh, Japan can't survive. It can't survive without this oil. So the oil and natural gas specifically that comes in, I think, is only 1/10 of everything that comes into Japan. All of that oil and natural gas that comes into Japan. So according to this professor, it's not necessary that they do this, but they're choosing to do it anyway. So that speaks directly to what you just asked, is what is the real reason this is happening? And I think that's the real question here to ask.
Yeah, well, because there are a lot more moving parts behind the scenes. So, well, just one of the key aspects for you guys to know, which the media didn't disclose openly, is that the US was aware of this behind the scenes and approved it.
The US did approve it.
The
You're
US
absolutely
approved
right.
it, which makes you ask the question, is this serves the interest of the United States by allowing Japan to have access to Russian oil? And I think the answer is yes,
Yep.
given what's going on into that part of the world, which we're going to detail a little bit because, again, as an analyst, you have to think about the big picture, as always, but also you have to consider the scenarios. What if?
Right.
You know, well, here is the thing. The two main things that pops up like a red flag said, I'm here. One of them has to do with Philippines allowing an additional 4 bases in addition to what they already have.
Yeah.
And the second one, you know what it has to do with the financial aspect.
Hugely, yes.
And the one I'm referring to has to do with ASEAN, this considering dumping the US dollar, dumping the Japanese yen, and dumping the euro and the British pound.
Yep.
So the United States is thinking in terms of, okay, how about if we let Japan just go ahead and get that Russian oil even above the price cap?
Yeah. So you're saying keep your allies, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
that's more or less what's happening.
Yeah. But the reason for that is because the intentions we have regarding what are we planning next year when it comes down to China.
Yeah.
So we want to have Japan and Australia at the forefront and add Philippines to that.
Yeah.
That is the reason why. So despite what you read, guys, despite what you hear, there is a reason behind the scenes as to why the United States, not the European Union. European Union is so weak. We've said this. We've said this many, many times.
Yeah.
It's the U.S. that caused the shot.
Yeah.
But the U.S. also thinking about, well, we're gonna need Japan to be used same way Philippines, same way Australia.
Right.
When it comes down to the tensions with China.
Well, and interestingly enough that you bring up Australia, so Beijing invited the Australian PM.
Yeah, well, China's gonna reach out. China's gonna do whatever, but I doubt it. Anything will come out of it. I was one of, and I don't shy away from saying when I'm wrong. I was wrong in a sense, not wrong, but I was hoping for the Prime Minister Albanese to reach out to China and resolve the trade tensions.
Right.
Because I was saying, well, this new guy might be able to do it.
Right.
And I kind of put a high probability. I should have not, but you know, that's how, you know, it's part of it. So it turns out to be that he couldn't because he was pressured by the United States not to do so.
Well, and that's very interesting. And especially, so we're going to do an entire show on this, right? On what just happened with the OPEC's decision to reduce oil production.
OPEC plus.
Right.
Yeah,
thank
because
you.
Of,
yes,
this
OPEC
way
plus.
They won,
absolutely.
No, it is OPEC. It is OPEC. It's just OPEC plus also.
Right.
Because that decision wasn't unilaterally by OPEC.
Right.
But the OPEC plus also agreed. So you're absolutely correct.
So that created a really big problem for a lot of countries that are not part of OPEC plus, including the United States. So one of the consequences of this is, you know, as the United States is economically in a very challenging position. If you look at our economy right now, our economy is basically at a standstill here in the United States, which is a really big problem. You don't want your economy to be at a standstill. You know, with all of the bank failures that we have going on and the mass transfer of wealth, basically that's still happening from small banks to larger banks. A lot more are going to collapse. I mean, that's what the prediction is that a lot more of these banks are going to collapse. And now we're going to have higher oil prices too. And so go ahead.
Well, actually, you're right. Because I was driving here. You know what? It's the gas station.
I know.
$3.39. You know how was
and
yesterday?
Climbing. Yeah.
$3.17. The day before, it was about $3.09. So you can just see why. And I'm sure whatever part of the world you are joining us from, I'm sure you're noticing the prices. And we're going to be talking about that one tomorrow in great detail. Yeah. But the other thing, just to bring it back to your point as to Japan, well, Japan depends a lot on Middle Eastern oil.
Yes.
Big time.
Big time.
So the surprise as to, you know, why the U.S. will allow Japan to break ranks with, because Japan is the only G7 nation that is now buying Russian oil.
It's
the
the only one right now
Yeah.
that that's happening with. My interest. So I also want to talk a little bit about the price cap to begin with, because the price cap, a lot of people think that it was, to halt Russian oil purchasing, but it wasn't.
No.
It was actually to allow Russian oil to keep flowing. It's just they didn't want it to create, massive profits for Russia.
Yeah.
Okay, but the problem is, like, if you actually look at the economics of it, so the type of oil that it is called Urals. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correct.
Ural.
Yeah.
Ural.
And so that is about what it would have been anyway. So it didn't actually hurt Russia. In fact, Japan specifically, if you're looking at Japan actually purchased 4.6% more oil and gas last year than it did the year before. So the increase from Russia specifically. So the increase in their purchasing from Russia, that's real. That actually it happened. And so, there's that whole idea that, we have all these sanctions and all of that, but it wasn't intended to stop the Russian flow of oil.
Yeah. Well, the same thing Europeans doing. Remember when we talked about last time about the two North African countries, Morocco and Tunisia, getting diesel from Russia,
Yeah.
and adding one additive to it so it will not be sanctioned and selling it to Europe. European themselves, the EU countries, including Germany, still as of today importing energy fuel, the nuclear fuel rather, from Russia.
Yeah.
This still as we speak. So the idea of the what you read versus what it is are two opposite things, and that's how it's always been. This is where I feel comfortable saying about our channel here. That's what we provide. It's this sort of a brief analysis and assessment of sort to put the dots together. And that's also what we do in our course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's the whole idea of it. Otherwise, everybody's going to be in the dark, not understanding how to put the pieces together.
And it's so interesting. Okay, first of all, we have a course, guys. It's called No Nonsense Politics. If you want to check it out, it's Geopolitics in Conflict, geopoliticsandconflict.com/no nonsense. And this, I'm giving you guys a sneak preview. We have a free newsletter. So if you go to geopoliticsandconflict.com, check out our free newsletter. So what we're dedicated to bringing you is the top stories that the Western media isn't covering, because you have a lot of distraction going on in the world right now, especially here in the United States. If you see what Western media is primarily focused on, we're going to do a show on that on Rumble tomorrow on what's happening with Donald Trump right now. But that's all happening, and that's what's being talked about, while the rest of the world is switching away from the dollar,
US dollar.
which is the biggest news possible. But I think that if it were being really told here, it would cause panic. I think people would really freak out, and they would necessarily, that's a really important thing that people know, but it's not being talked about here. So a lot of the things that aren't being talked about, we put them in our newsletter and we send them to you, to your inbox every week. And it's geopoliticsandconflict.com, and it's right on the front page. You can sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, you guys check it out. And you might check out also, will they have like a link to the course, how to go?
Yeah, they will. So from the newsletter, you can buy the course. And one more cool, awesome thing. David is going to be doing the government course live. So if you guys want to be on a course live with us, we will send you that information too. Okay, but back to this really quick, because it is really important talking about the distraction that is happening here in the United States while the rest of this is happening. So, Japan did this with the permission of the United States, but, according to this professor.
But hold on a second.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Isn't that odd? You used the key term you used, but I'd like to, just for our viewers to put it in perspective, you used the term with the permission of the United States. Can you guys just take a step back and think about that term? Japan, with the permission of the United States, is getting oil. Because the question that you ought to ask is, what happened to the Japanese sovereignty? Do you think, here's a question for you guys. Do you think Japan has a sovereignty? Is a sovereign state? It is on papers and all that.
Yeah.
But for Japan, like what you said, with the permission, it's
Yeah.
no different than what I'm seeing with Australia.
Absolutely.
It's no different than what I'm seeing with South Korea, with Philippines. So, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I just had to say that one because it's a key word.
It is. And you're absolutely right. And I think the big, I don't know if it's scary or not. It just is what's happening. But the big thing that the world needs to be paying attention to right now is exactly what you're talking about, right? So there is a shift between the countries that are sticking with the Western world right now and the countries that are shifting to the basically Russia-China alliance. I don't know what else to call that.
Global South.
The global South.
Yeah, but I will call it also, this is where the importance, like I always say, and I say thanks for a reason.
Yes,
and I've said it a few months ago. And there's a record for it on a video. What I said back then, and I still hold that thought today, is that the new geopolitical landscape, the new emerging multipolar system, it's not going to be based on ideology. It's going to be based on economic blocks. This is why you're seeing now ASEAN, you're seeing BRICS, SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which Saudi Arabia now joined that. You're seeing the RCP, you're seeing the African Union, you're seeing the in Latin America. That is what's going to define the new multipolar order system. And the other thing that I am very convinced about is that this new multipolar does not need a policeman. Does not need it, because it can manage itself.
Right.
And you know how it's going to manage it? By ensuring that bilateral or multilateral trades are conducted in a variety of currencies. So they will be under the dominance of none. That's how I see it.
And in its own way, don't you think that's kind of healthy?
It is, when you consider, the percentage for the U.S. trade, the U.S. dollar in the global trade.
Yeah,
it's almost about 90.
Yeah, I mean, it's shrinking, but yes.
So, but it's shrinking now when countries are moving forward towards, and this is where to tie Japan to why it did this decision and why the U.S. allow it, because Japan also had stakes into, I am certain, whatever conversation was behind closed doors between Japan and the United States, Japan also made it clear to the United States that we can risk our relationship with ASEAN.
Right.
You know why? Because the trade between Japan and ASEAN is about $214 billion as of 2019.
Yeah.
And Japan got concerned once they heard that ASEAN is dumping the Japanese yen. So that's just common sense. Common sense for, because ASEAN is moving into that direction, whether the West likes it or not. And where the question that I have about ASEAN themselves is the two main countries, not the main countries, but the two countries, Philippines and Singapore.
Yes. Speak a little bit more to Singapore, because that's actually very interesting too.
Well, Singapore, it's, as you may know, is like almost the financial hub in Southeast Asia, right? But Singapore was the only nation within ASEAN countries that went ahead and placed sanctions on Russia.
Yeah.
Why?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, because that's, to me, and this is what explains the trip of the Prime Minister Lee, I think Lee, L-E-I, or no, L-E-E. I can't pronounce the last name. So anyway, he went to Japan, he went to China. And again, putting my geopolitical analyst hat, thinking of what could the conversation consist of between him and President Xi. It's going to be about the Singapore telling China, don't you worry. Because the concern, if you look at the map, I wish I wish I would have pulled up the map.
We got a map back here.
Well, it's the one that I wanted to show, the location of Singapore and access to the South China Sea waters, because those are sea lines that are crucial to trades in that part of the world and the whole world for that matter. So that is why I see the importance of why Japan made this move, and also why the United States allow it.
Yeah.
Because we have no other choice in our, because we need to have Japan, we
Right.
need to have Philippines, we need to have South Korea,
Yeah.
we need to have Australia.
Right.
With those like under the thumb of the US,
Yeah.
we can do whatever. So that's how I see it. And I also found, let me, somebody put a sticker there. I was
Yes.
like, say thank you
Yes.
to the person.
Let me see if I can
I
grab
wish I
it.
can see it from here, but
All right, where is it? Okay, JC Politics.
Oh, JC.
Always love the content. Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Yeah. If I may just share with you guys this one here, and here is why. For Japan, Southeast Asia is not only an area where the vital sea lines of communication and natural resources exist, but also an important geostrategic theater for Japan's so-called free and open Indo-Pacific. You know, funny how they call it Indo-Pacific,
Yep.
but not Asia-Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
That's another conversation for another day. And here's the thing. In the context of intensifying US-China strategic competition, currently, Japan is preparing a set of recommendations to further strengthen ties with ASEAN and the member states. Nevertheless, Japan emphasis on Southeast Asia and ASEAN will potentially become less, that's the key word, less valuable this year.
Oh no.
Now you see why we said what we said about ASEAN dumping the Japanese yen.
Yep.
So this is why, guys, you need to really keep, try to see it like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Absolutely.
This is why. And I came through the research when I looked into this. Japan is not doing this because of, well, they just want to support Russia, or no. It's long term.
Yeah.
And when you consider, I even looked at the research for this, when you consider Japan and the ASEAN, $240 billion trade as of 2019.
Well, and that's a lot. And especially, 214 billion would be different if it was part of the US, right?
Yeah.
But for Japan, that's huge.
Yeah, well, given where their economy, Japan of the 1980s is gone.
Right.
And by the way, do you guys know what happened with that? We're the one who caused that to begin with, because we didn't want a strong Japan.
Right.
So, and this is where I see again, the new multipolar system will be based on economic blocks.
Absolutely.
Because Japan will have no other option but to continue its trade with ASEAN. And of course, they can't ignore the Chinese market, no matter how you look at it. I mean, we're already seeing how some countries being pushed. So, for example, with the case of TikTok, being pushed to ban.
We don't even have a ban on TikTok here.
Well, it's starting because now Marco Rubio, the senator, he just announced that we need to ban TikTok. You know who else came up on Twitter and said that yesterday?
Who did?
Prime Minister of Australia, saying that Australia is banning. You can just see the trends, guys. This is all about trends, because trends will give you an indication or a hint as to what lies ahead. This is why these things don't happen in a vacuum. So
no, they don't. You're absolutely right.
Not at all.
Well, and so talking about this a little bit further, so I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'll pick it up.
Sorry, Dave.
Then you think about also, you think also about Japan and ASEAN within the terms of the comprehensive, because here is the thing. What again has not been reported aggressively. It is reported, but on a limited basis.
Yeah.
And I found the info not in the US media.
Right.
I found it overseas.
Right.
You know that Japan and ASEAN just signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement?
Say more about what's in that agreement, because that's a really, really big thing.
Well, they just signed it because Japan realized the importance of ASEAN economy. The $2.8 trillion. You can't ignore stuff like that.
You can't ignore that.
And also because of logistics.
Yes.
Geography.
Yep.
That's the same thing Australia did not think through once they cut off the ties with not cut off ties, but they enter into trade tensions with China.
Yeah.
It's logistic.
Yep.
You have your neighbor right there.
Right there.
And you are saying, no, we're going to have to cut this and cut that, because that just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Japan is trying to avoid the same fate.
Yeah.
Because what did
They
China do
are.
with Australia? Cut off
Cut them off.
trade.
Yep.
Yeah. Australians' economy
Yeah.
sank. That's just what happened. And we had an interview yesterday with
Yes.
one of Australian politicians. We will release it for you guys next week sometime. And he was spot on.
Yeah.
He was spot on. I want to keep his name off because surprise for you. He was spot on. And I really trust the person.
Yeah.
I trust that person. And he said,
Yeah.
the trade with China, once China shut that door,
Yeah.
not on everything except for iron ore,
Yeah.
because Australia is massive, it's rich in
Yeah.
iron ore. So China was smart. I see the same outcome. It's going to happen to Philippines if it doesn't get its ducks in a row.
Yeah.
But there is a reason to why that is.
Yeah.
Here's the question for you. As a matter of fact, one of our viewers from Philippines sent a note. I read it. That's why I read, because we learn. You know what it said?
What?
It said that most Filipinos are pissed
Yeah.
at Marcos Jr.
Yeah.
So here's the question for you guys. And if you can leave us the answer on the chat just to learn from it. Why do you think Marcos Jr., Bongbong, agreed to allow 4 additional bases in Philippines? In your opinion, why do you think that is? I have my answer.
Yeah.
But I'll wait for that till I will see.
Well, and if you guys are in the Philippines, put in the chat the way that it's being represented in your media, because your media is talking about it. We have people from the Philippines that are in our space.
Yeah.
And your media is reporting it. If you're from the Philippines, let us know exactly how your media is reporting it.
Yeah. And this is why Japan, thinking in terms of seeing where the economic trends is headed. Right. When I say economic, I'm referring to the global economic shift that is taking place before our own eyes. This seeing where the financial trajectory is headed.
Yeah.
And what was the nail on the coffin for Japan is when ASEAN dumped the Japanese yen.
Yeah.
That was just it.
Well, but that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge problem. And Japan has always been economically savvy. There's a really interesting guy. His name is Professor Richard Warner, and he wrote a book called Princes of the Yen. So if you want to know what happened to the Japanese economy, he puts forth a very interesting version that's basically controlled demolition of the Japanese economy to basically rewrite laws to be more favorable. So it's very interesting. There's a documentary, I think, on YouTube if you guys want to check it out, but it's really worth looking at. But Japan has always sort of had their eye, because economically they're they have the highest debt to GDP in the world. So they're leveraged in some really, and they've carried that for a long time, so that's not new, but they're leveraged in some really tricky ways. They have to take care of their imports and exports. They have to stay economically on top of things.
Yeah, and this is why those changes are happening. But Japan is realizing that because you all remember with the trip of he's still the Secretary General of NATO when he went to Japan. He was in Japan when he announced, because trying to push Japan into be involved in supporting Ukraine with the weapons and all that, which means what? You just draw them in. Once you suck them into the system, that's it. It's exactly what just happened with Finland.
Yes.
Which is now officially is the 31st member of NATO. Yeah. They have no clue that Prime Minister, she's naive. She's too young for, I have no offense. I have great respect, whatever, for whomever. But you call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
She has no clue what she was getting into, because she is too young to understand the intricacies of what geopolitics is all about. Now, basically, she dug Finland into a hole.
Yeah.
And that's why she lost. She's going to resign, by the way, from the Democratic Party, or her Democratic Party by September. But she lost. It's over for her.
Yeah.
And now she's aspiring for a new political office. Come on, Finnish people are not too excited about this, because they coexisted with the Soviet Union and Russia for over 50 years in peace.
Yeah,
because here is what's going to happen. And funny enough that I wrote about it in my Russia book.
You did.
Well, I wish I can remember the page exactly. Because what's going to happen?
David will never brag on himself, guys, but I can do that. So
Ah.
David's written a bunch of books. They're on Amazon if you want to check them out, but this is one of them, and he wrote it on Russia.
Russia, yeah. And
Yep.
in it, I mentioned that all Russia is going to be doing in case Finland join NATO, it just moves some short and medium range missiles to the border.
Yeah.
And with some tactical nukes, and that's all they need to do.
Yep.
Because they share, Russia and Finland share about 2,600 miles
Yep.
of borders. So basically what this Prime Minister, Sana, did, just not understanding, because she's being pushed into it. She's young, she's naive, let alone she is a student of World Economic Forum.
Yep.
But that's conversation.
Wow, what a surprise. That's a real shocker.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm sure no one else is who's pushing for the same things.
I know.
I'm sure she's the only one.
Yeah. Let me go back to your point before I forget about Japan and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Because who is now in Beijing as we speak? The French president.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's in Japan.
This is huge, guys.
So again, another question you ask yourself. And again, those are questions that any real analyst, not a fake one, a real analyst will be asking. Why is Macron going back to China? He was just there 2.5 months ago.
Yep.
Because the question that Chinese will be asking themselves is, can we trust Macron? Because Macron is saying, the French president that is saying, well, I'm going to go to China to really push for the peace initiative for the Ukraine. Well, hold on a second. Aren't you the one who are fueling and supporting the Ukraine conflict?
Yeah.
How can you go to China and say, and China's not dumb, they're smart. They will know, they read between the lines. They're not going to trust whatever Macron's saying. But that's not about that, because of course what's going on in France.
I don't think that's what that's about. So there's always the thing that the politician says they're going for, and then there's always the thing they're actually going for.
Exactly. He's going, in my opinion, because he's scared of the French people.
Yeah.
He's running away because he's not running again for elections.
Yeah.
In French constitution, you only allow 2 terms.
Yeah.
7-year term. And that's it. He'll finish his term and that's it.
Yeah.
But but the other thing is he wants to secure something for France.
I think
with
so.
China.
Yep.
Because we all know we're Chinese economy.
Yep. Well, and so that's something, right? So first of all, so this is what he says he's going to go do.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take that with a grain of salt. Okay. But it's another one of those indicators. There's a saying that says there are years when nothing happens and there are weeks when everything changes. And what we're seeing right now is that we're seeing the mass in its own way, this mass exodus of leaders of other countries going to China to do whatever they say that they're gonna do. But when you look at China, what is their strategy? It's economic. And so, it's interesting because a couple of years ago, there was a lot of talk that was like, oh, China doesn't want to take over anything. China doesn't want this, China doesn't want that. And I was like, there's 2 types of ways that you can take over the world or you can take over another country. One is militarily, right? You can go in, you can fight, and you can take it over. The other is economics.
Yeah.
And so China is not going in and militarily taking over anything.
No.
But what they are doing is going in and creating very strong economic ties with these other countries. And they're doing it with countries that are supposedly allied to the West.
Yeah.
And France is one of them.
Well, they are looking for their own interest. I look at it like this argument about the US and competition with China in Africa. Well, Africa ignored the US basically.
Yep.
And saying because of the economic incentives.
Right.
China's not doing it for free. Let's just clear that up. China's not doing it because of the goodness of its heart. China's doing it for business reason and strategic reason also. And rightly so.
Right.
You will think of, do I as a country, do I establish military bases with the cost and all that? Or do I establish economic ventures?
Right.
That's just common sense.
Right.
You look at, this is why African countries now rejecting. The reason I'm using Africa as an example, because Secretary of State is heading out to Africa.
Yeah.
For a tour in none other than Niger, I think, and Cameroon.
which
Yeah.
are countries that are.
Yeah, but what happened with the Cameroon?
Mhm.
Cameroon just agreed to trade
Yeah.
with Saudi Arabia using their own currencies in oil,
Yep.
in energy. So they're
Yep.
not gonna get there. So you can just see the trend. So, and this is exactly what Japan, just to tie it back to our
Mhm.
topic here, Japan, when it made this move, I am sure they asked the US permission, if I may use the
Yes.
term.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's sad to
Yeah,
say.
it is.
It's sad. You know, I'm not laughing, but it's very sad when
Yeah.
a country, so-called a sovereign, will ask another country for permission to,
Mhm.
because this is exactly what Australia is doing.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Germany, this is
Yep.
some European countries, not all of them. This is what Canada is doing, and New Zealand to a degree.
Mhm.
And you're just seeing the trend where that is. So
Yep.
other countries saying, no, we don't want it. We won't have it.
Yeah.
And we're going to make our own decisions for this. And rightly so.
Mhm.
That's like for us here in the US. Do we want a country to come to us and dictate to us? Well, you can do this, or we permit you for this. No,
Right,
we're not going
right.
to allow it. So,
Well, and I think it's interesting because, we're talking about foreign policy with the United States, and we're talking about foreign policy because you say this all the time,
Mhm,
David.
mhm.
The US has a very fragmented foreign policy. And so when you're looking at all of these other countries, I think in some ways they've just been waiting for another opportunity to sort of get away from Western rule or Western oppression, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
yeah.
But, the United States, we want better foreign policy here because what we have isn't working. And the moment these other countries can jump ship to somewhere else, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. And there is no going back.
There's no
Yeah,
going back.
Yeah. The sad part for us in the US is we haven't had foreign policy for the last 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah.
You know, like I said last time, what's his name? Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
You know, yes, consider him war crime, whatever.
Right.
I never
Probably a
liked
pretty
the-
bad dude.
Yeah, well, for what he did in Vietnam,
Absolutely.
how
Yeah.
can you forget?
Right.
You know, let's go spade a spade.
Yeah.
But I'll give him credit. You know, and like I always say, you stand for what's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
He had a better understanding of reading the global geopolitical landscape
Yeah.
more than anyone else that I've known since I started to get involved in
Yeah.
Japan. He is the only one.
Well, and I think that's interesting because
Yeah.
first of all, it's not a good person. Okay.
No, it's not.
But
no, I don't.
it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, you look at US politicians right now, and it's some unbelievable number of lobbyists for every
Yeah.
person in Congress. And so in some ways, I have these conversations actually with my friends and family about, it feels like we're just kind of being used as consumers. And
Yeah.
that's all we kind of are, is we're being bounced from one consumer thing to another, right? From one fast food place to the next, from one big box store to the next. That's all we are as consumers. And we don't serve any other purpose or any other value.
Yeah.
To our politicians than whose pockets are going to get lined from, whoever the interest group is.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm excited about the course for the government part.
Yeah.
Because that falls within my area anyway. And I teach government.
Yes.
So I kind of, there are some things that most Americans will be, if they ever find out, they will be like, what? Is the Constitution says one thing, and including the Supreme Court that's supposed to uphold that Constitution.
Yeah.
Even the Supreme Court of the United States is fractured and corrupted.
Yeah.
I'll say it straightforward. So, because that's the reality, that's the truth of it. So, let me go back to one point about Henry Kissinger, because it's very important to understand. Like I said, I never liked the guy.
Yeah.
But I do. And again, I don't cherry pick. No, you call spade a spade. What he did with opening China to the world, it was a smart move. We were trying to do the same with the Soviet Union, but we screw it up big time. And you know who did?
Who?
Was none other than the former National Security Advisor, Brzezinski.
Oh.
Because here is the thing. I want you guys to understand this. And we read through it for us and in international relations, because when I was doing the master's level, we had to do regions, for example, Asian securities, European securities, and so forth. So that's how I acquired that kind of understanding, and through my own research, academic that is, back then, pardon me, back then, it was the idea of you get the three key players.
Yeah.
What was US, Soviet Union, and China at the time, right? You will think we will sit together and cooperate and figure it out. That's what was Henry Kissinger's thinking in that direction. Brzezinski was the opposite. That's why we end up with the Afghan so-called invasion of the Soviet Union. Because we're the one that right from that point forward, you start to have to identify an enemy, whether real or perceived.
Yep.
That's where the disconnect happened. It happened right after Henry Nixon's trip to China, the famous trip. I know. Mao was open to all those kind of conversations. They were literally, because to those who argue, well, China is this communist things, whatever. Well, wait a minute. It is communist in a system, but it is capitalist when it comes down to business. Did you know how easy it is to open a business in China?
Yeah.
They don't have the red tape. They don't have the bureaucracy. We do.
Oh, yeah. We're drowning in bureaucracy.
Look where they are. Look where they are business-wise.
Yeah.
So it's just that for us here in the U.S., the establishment would have to ensure there is always that perceived enemy.
Right.
Remember, we moved from Soviet Union to Russia, to terrorism, to now China, to God only knows what's next.
Yeah.
That's where the disconnect. I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I believe had we pursued that approach back in the early 70s, with both China and the Soviet Union at that time, we will have a different world today. Yes, we will still East and West, most likely.
Yeah.
But at least you will have a balanced world order. And this is why now, this is the reason why I said what I said about the new multipolar system. Does not need a policeman. The new multipolar system will manage itself by itself.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be that equality per se, economically, financially, and so forth. Because the world won't be tied to one particular country.
Right.
We've done it. We've abused it. And I'll say it because we abused it. Like I always say, power is responsibility.
Yep.
We've abused it beyond belief.
Absolutely.
And countries said enough is enough. This is why you're seeing that the from the financial aspects, it's starting from that direction.
Well, and something that you said I want to point to, because countries are not using one other currency, right? They're not using the yuan, for example.
No.
They're using each other's currency. And that speaks exactly to what you're saying about a multipolar system and using each other's currencies for bilateral trade.
Yeah.
And so it looks like, because I don't know this, I'm not an economist. I don't know what is going to happen as China economically expands, but they, at least right now, are setting some level of precedent for other currencies being used than their own.
That is true.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But so far, it's in the bilateral aspect. Look what just they did with Brazil.
Right.
Look what just they did with Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, of course, is there. Russia, even Turkey to a degree. So some countries in Africa, the Gulf states, everybody's moving that direction. Does not mean the yuan or renminbi is going to become the equivalency of the US dollar.
Right. As a
China
reserve
doesn't
currency,
want that as of today.
As of today.
Based on my knowledge.
Yeah.
As of today. And I talked to some people.
Yeah.
They have a great deal of understanding about this. They said, as of today, we don't see the signs for that.
Yeah.
Now, because it comes again, responsibility and a headache. There's a lot of, look where we are.
Yeah.
Look where we are. Americans are clueless as to what lies ahead financially. It's going to hit them like a brick.
Well, and historically, every single reserve currency has failed.
Yeah.
And, anybody who's really paying attention to the economy, the economics of reserve currencies, they fail, and they fail within a predictable time period. So they fail, but within, I think it's 80 to 120 years. They fail. Every single one of them fails. And so you're looking at, why does another country want to become a reserve currency? Obviously, there's printing money. There's
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah.
There's profit reasons. But if you're looking short-sighted versus long-term, and is it your take, because what you're talking about with China, Russia, and the United States could have been basically a bilateral world, right? We could have turned into a
Back then,
bilateral
yeah.
world. What is the reason that you think, and just out of my curiosity, guys, I love learning from David too. What is the reason that the US didn't do that?
Well, because Brzezinski was pushing hard. Remember, in our system, when you are a national security advisor, you're the last person between the National Security Council, which is the principals, what we call them, the principals. That's usually a group of people. Each one of them specifically focus on one geographical area or region, what is. And those was headed by the National Security Advisor. National Security Advisor is the last person to communicate that to the president. So Brzezinski had access to Nixon. So you kind of just, because if you are in that position, you will be able to influence the direction. This is why advisors can either make you or break you. This is what we're seeing with our President Biden. Mentally is not there, but the decisions that's been made, you can just tell whomever is advising him, because there is also the hidden hand in Washington. So put this. So the reason why it didn't work is because Brzezinski didn't allow it that time. They wanted to push another alternative that will give the US the ultimate control.
Well,
that is what it was all about. That's why we looking at Soviet Union at that time, it was always has to be pushed into the direction of that's the enemy, that's the enemy, that's the enemy. Of course, the Cold War was East and West, East in Soviet Union, West is the United States, but it wasn't about that, because when Henry Kissinger was pushing the policy for China to open up China, it worked. It worked. And again, I'm just thinking, what if? Can you just imagine what if those three countries sat together and cooperate? And this is why you are seeing today on the global stage why countries are taking on China and ignoring the United States, because they're taking on China for economic reasons. China doesn't bring them conflicts, it brings them economic opportunities. I mean, if you are a head of state, what would you be looking for?
Absolutely.
The welfare of your citizens.
Hopefully,
your country,
yes.
For us was different. We have to create conflicts, because is there a conflict that can push the economy through special interest groups, through the military industrial complex, through the lobbyists? That's how we do it. We've been doing it. One conflict after another. As a matter of fact, just FYI for you guys, there is now, I'm going to share it with you.
Now I'm really interested.
I'm going to be traveling soon. Okay. And I'm going to be visiting one particular region. And that region now, there's a conflict brewing. And guess who's leading that conflict?
I can't imagine.
NATO.
Wow, what a surprise.
I know.
That's a huge shocker.
And why? It's because China also is in that part of the world. Russia is in that part of the world.
Very much.
You can just see why. That's to me it was almost like a missed opportunity back then. When this is why, again, just to go back to Henry Kissinger, he was, I don't like the guy, I don't care for the guy, but when it comes down to understanding how to decipher the intricacies of geopolitics, he was good at it. Straightforward, it's kind of, but what he did in Vietnam and all the policies in Laos and Cambodia, I was in Cambodia and I talked to some people there just out of my own curiosity. And I kind of, the elderly didn't forget.
Of course.
And how could they? How could you? Yeah. So that's
well, but don't you think that policy is extremely short-sighted?
It is, except that for us, it lost the, politics can be noble thing. It can be noble thing if it is done right by the right people. Because politicians shouldn't take it as a career. You are there to serve people for a particular time, not for 40 years. What can you do in 40 you couldn't do in 10? It's ridiculous. But if you have to understand the beginning of America, this is why, again, we're going to do that, because that's what I'm going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Is the beginning of America, how it was set up.
Yep.
It's all in the system, how it was set up. That is the reason what most Americans do not know or understand.
Yep.
So this is why now we, the United States, as of today, we are scared. Not physically, but we are scared about the shift in the global order.
Yeah.
We are so scared of it because it's going to strip us out of our dominance.
Yep. Well, and it doesn't seem like there's anything we can do to stop it at this point.
No.
Right? There just isn't. If we were going to stop it, that should have happened decades ago. But we're not, and we're in this position right now. And I think that there's a lot of effort to try and sort of keep that out of people's eyes, like keep that away from people. The people here, because if you guys are in another country and wondering how can Americans let this keep happening, it's because people don't know. And it's because it's not really being talked about very much here. And when it is being talked about, it goes way over people's heads because it's not commonplace to talk about
and
it.
That's why I would like to simplify for you guys what geopolitics is all about. That's the whole reason for why we have a channel. I do the same on the other channel. That's why it's named Simplify.
Yeah.
So it does there are two things, just to go back to your point quickly here. Two things about why some of us Americans, because the only two things we always pursue is destruction. That's one. And conflict.
Conflicts.
Yeah. Again, use history as your guide to understand the trends. After World War II, it was the meeting that took place in 1952. The decision was made then that we're going to need to be involved in conflict, not wars, not even winning wars.
Right.
Conflict.
Yep.
And conflicts after conflict. So you go the Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf I, Gulf II, Afghanistan, and now Ukraine.
Yep.
And the upcoming one.
Yep.
Taiwan Strait. Because that's what everything is gearing
Fingers
up to.
crossed not, but
I hope not.
Yeah.
But how can you, when you see now, the Speaker of the House is going to be meeting with the, what's her name? Tsai.
Yeah.
They're going to be meeting. You know what I mean? That's plain in a diplomatic world. That's provocation.
Yep.
When we signed off 3 communiques, 72, I think, 79 and 84, about one China policy.
Yeah.
How can you sign a document because you're signature on it? So you have to honor that.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
It's no different than what we did with the Iran deal, the GCPOA. We withdrew unilaterally. What the heck? The world's going to be trusting America anymore.
Right.
You break your word.
Right.
How can I trust you?
Right.
That's it.
Well, and interestingly enough, you look at the narrative, and I'm not even clear what the narrative is for a war with Taiwan or a war with China over Taiwan. I'm not even sure why we would even be doing this, right?
And that's the key. It's the tension. You need to create tension. You don't need a war per se.
Right.
Because here is the hard truth. Sorry to cut you.
No, go ahead.
I get excited because that's just
you guys. Does David get excited?
Yeah. I just when it comes out to geopolitics, this is my wheelhouse. So here's the thing: most Americans have no clue what a war with China will entail. They have no clue, zero understanding for what will happen if that war breaks up. Because the narrative has been sold as. But it's not sold. Yes, you use the term war, but it's for the tensions.
Right.
It's no different than when we started in 1952 going that direction. That's why most Americans cannot understand, will not understand.
Yeah.
And the government find it convenient, just distract them.
Yep.
The Trump issue, whatever.
Which we're going to talk about tomorrow on our Rumble, guys. If you want to check out our Rumble.
Because we can't talk about certain things here.
Rumble.com. I think it's /Geopolitics and Conflict Show, but just look it up on Rumble.
I got some stuff I'd like to share on the Rumble. I can't talk here. But.
Guys, we can't say everything here. So check out our Rumble. And if there's more of you guys that pop over to Rumble, we will do more shows on Rumble. The more that you guys want to hear stuff that we can't say here for obvious reasons that you know about, check out our Rumble. Okay, we have 6 minutes left, and we have
Well,
had
we need to
people.
say thank you to somebody
We
there.
need to say thank
Yeah.
you to
I am an
few
avid
people.
of saying thank you
Yes.
to super stickers because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, so JC Politics, I see your question, and we're gonna get to it in a second. Let me see if I can pull up the people who were ahead. Okay, I'm gonna ask his question while I find the other ones who gave us super chats. Okay, question, and thank you for the super chat, JC Politics. Japan was denied the F-22 by the US and has since made efforts to manufacture a sixth generation fighter. What does this do to the balance of power in the region?
Oh, big time. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to get the F-35s, but F-35s is not working properly. That's a mess with F-35. Yes, and I don't think so the US will let that happen. This is why it's going to be appeasing Japan for whatever. The one thing we will never allow Japan to rearm itself. Now, there are those who are saying, and I've heard this argument, even though I am not, it's not conclusive, but I am not sold on it. They're saying that Japan wants to rearm because it wants to kick the US out. I won't buy that argument.
Yeah.
I won't buy that argument because we sank in our claws inside Japan when it comes down to the security arrangements. That is the reason why. The reason why we prevent them from having a military to begin with. That is the reason why. So, and we are staying in Okinawa. Even Okinawa itself, doesn't belong to Japan. You know the history of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't belong to Japan, by the way, but Okinawa it's in Japan anyway. So the idea of for Japan to move forward with the building of this kind of sixth generation, the US is going to sabotage that by any means.
Yeah.
They won't allow that to happen because they want to have Japan dependent on the United States.
Okay. And this is probably the last question. Raphael, China told Macron today, we need to know that we are talking to Europe when we are talking to you guys, and you guys are not telling us what the US wants to say.
Exactly. I am not surprised at the Chinese statement, and it's the right way. This is, to me, and again, I'm not praising China, whatever. I don't do that.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But this statement,
yeah,
this is what the art of diplomacy is all about. This is a reflection of the true diplomacy, because they're not going to give the middle finger to Macron and say, go back to, no. Because in diplomacy, you have to. But China is smart enough to know, because Macron is not there on behalf of the European Union.
Right.
He's not there on behalf of NATO. Macron is on behalf of Macron.
Yeah.
That's the reason why. That's why China stated that. So, but I have my doubt that anything will happen, because we will sabotage any peace initiative that China will initiate. Like I said last time, the last thing we will want is a peace initiative that is a peace deal that is initiated by non-Western country, let alone it's China.
Yep.
That's
it's exactly what we saw with the Ukraine document that they put out. The proposal for peace.
Yeah.
All the points.
Oh, I read the 12 points.
And
I read them.
Pretty pragmatic.
They are, But if Macron wants to be true and not hypocrites, how can you go to China and say to China, well, we want to know what you're dealing on, and you on behind, you're supporting the groups in Ukraine and all that stuff. So come on, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
So to me, that's what a hypocrite does.
Yep.
Because we don't know where do you stand on the issue. So.
Well, and I think that's actually been very confusing if you look at the reality of, European countries buying Russian oil and Russian exports, and I mean imports and exports, right?
Yeah.
So it's been very confusing if you actually take a deep dive into the facts, into the numbers, into what's happening between these countries versus what they're saying.
Exactly. And this is why I said Macron trip to China is for Macron.
Yeah.
Because you know what just happened last week?
Yeah.
France paid in the Chinese yuan renminbi for a transaction with China. They got 64, and I checked this and it's factual. They got 64,000 tons of liquefied natural gas from China.
Yeah.
They didn't pay in the US dollar. The French paid in the Chinese renminbi, yuan renminbi. That's why I'm
that's
saying
huge.
it is. That's why I'm saying he is in China
Yep.
for his own good, not Europe, not NATO,
Yep.
because he knew or he knows
Mhm.
the US will not let him. US will sabotage any initiative.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, yeah.
You know, interestingly enough, like that one piece of information we could probably do a whole show on.
Oh, would you like guys to have us do a show on that? Because there is a
yeah.
lot behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, you guys, if you want us to do a show on a particular topic, it takes us a little bit of time to research it. We are not the news. We are analysts. We
No,
are
we
not the
don't.
news.
Yeah, I saw somebody put a comment. Oh, I like your TV station.
Oh. I would love to have a channel
Yeah,
sometime in the future.
I said, no, we're not a TV station.
Anyway, oh wait, we have a couple of more super chats. I really appreciate it, guys. We have a free newsletter, and our newsletter is dedicated to giving you the top stories that the Western media isn't talking about or that won't talk about. So if you want to sign up for it, check it out, geopoliticsinconflict.com. And it's right on the front page. If you want to sign up for a newsletter, it's free. And that way, when we do release, so we're doing this course live, guys. So if you want to be on Zoom, it's usually a much smaller group. And for our course members right now, we actually talk to you guys live on Zoom. You can get on camera if you want.
Yeah.
But we're teaching this course live, or David's primarily teaching it live, and it's a course on government. And we'll send that information out through the newsletter if you sign up for it. Anyway, okay. We are out of time, but I am trying to find Bob Page. Thank you so much for your super sticker.
Thank you, Bob.
And then we have another one. If I go scroll all the way down, I can't find it because we have so many chats. Where is everybody from? Let's finish out with that. Where is everybody from? If you guys want to type that in the chat, I would love to see it.
Great.
Oh, Osiris, great.
Oh, Cyrus, yeah. Oh, good to see you here as well. You know, Cyrus has been, it's an avid supporter.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know, on the other channel, Cyrus always put a sticker, super sticker.
Oh, that's
always.
Cool. Thank you guys for your
support. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you, all of you guys.
We don't have any, we don't have big donors. We don't have
no.
So we're doing this on our own. We're independent analysts, and your support means the world to us. So thank you very much for your support. If you want to join our membership for the channel, and as soon as we get to 100 members, we're going to do a live Q&A for members only there. So just join below. Yeah. Okay, where are we from? Australia, US, Tennessee, Singapore, Iraq, London, Brazil, UK, Melbourne, Belgium.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Good to have you guys.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, we truly appreciate you. By the way, we will be doing live tomorrow about energy security. Very, very great topic. And I know about that topic. I spend a lot of time in the Middle East. I wrote 3 books about the Middle East. I'll bring them over.
Oh, hey,
That's
wait,
just one of them.
We got another one. If you guys have not seen this book, like I said, David will not brag on himself, but I can do that. So he wrote this book also.
Yeah.
Fall of the House of Saud.
I'll bring the other 2 tomorrow. And we'll be talking about this, but not from just about oil. We're talking about the implications, geopolitical and economic.
Yeah.
And you tie that one to the financial transactions that's taking place around the world.
Yep.
It's fascinating. It will be fascinating. We know a lot about this. I feel comfortable saying this. And of course, we will entertain some of your questions. So, well, we hope you have a good day, the rest of your day, afternoon, whatever part of the world you're in. And we look forward to seeing you next time. As always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.